Welcome back to Silk Warrant. Today in this story is about 47 neighbors who tried to remove me and lost without knowing it.
There were 47 signatures on that petition. I counted them twice, standing at my own front door in the rain, holding a manila folder that didn't belong to me yet. My neighbor Linda had organized it. Linda, who wore linen blazers to check her mail and spoke in the measured cadence of someone who had never once been told no. The paper smelled like her lavender printer ink. I recognized it. Dee used the same printer to send me 3 friendly reminders about my wind chimes. I stood there thinking, they have absolutely no idea what I do for a living, and I thought about a different number entirely. One I had found on a Tuesday morning over coffee, doing something I've done every week since my mother taught me to. My name is Caroline Marsh. I grew up in a house where money was treated like a language, something you learned to read early or got left behind. My mother was a bookkeeper for 30 years. Saturday mornings, she'd sit at the kitchen table with a mug of black coffee and a stack of public records she'd printed at the library. County assessments, lien filings, tax rolls. "Read everything before you sign anything," she told me once, not looking up from a page. "Most people never do, that's where the opportunity lives." I moved to Birchwood Estates 3 years ago. It was a quiet cul-de-sac community outside of Columbus. Nice houses, big oak trees. A homeowners association that sent newsletters with seasonal clip art and passive-aggressive reminders about lawn edging standards. I worked in municipal debt acquisition. I bought distressed financial obligations from cities, counties, and private entities, mostly HOA structures that had overextended themselves. I'd spent years learning to read the fine print that organizations printed in 12-point font and hoped no one would notice. When I moved to Birchwood, I wasn't looking for anything. I just wanted a house with a porch and good light in the morning. Linda Carver lived 4 houses down. She was the HOA board president, a title she treated like a military commission. She was the kind of woman who tapped the table twice with 2 fingers when she was confident about something, a little double knock, like she was sealing a deal in her own head. I noticed it the first time we met, at a welcome committee coffee she'd organized, where she tapped the table and said, "We have very high standards here." The trouble started 8 months in. When I hung a set of small copper wind chimes on my back porch. You could hear them from inside my house if the window was open. You could not hear them from the street. Linda heard them from somewhere. The first letter was friendly. The second was official. The third arrived with a fine attached, $40 for noise disruption in violation of HOA Code 7-4B. I paid it. I took down the wind chimes, not because I was afraid, but because I had learned that the best move is almost always to wait. Then in January, my car was towed from my own driveway. Linda had filed a complaint claiming my vehicle extended past the property line by 14 inches. The tow cost me $312 and a lost afternoon. The HOA board voted on it in a meeting I wasn't informed about. I attended the next meeting. I sat in the back. I took notes. I did not say a single word. What I noticed, sitting in that meeting room with its folding chairs and bottled water and Linda at the head of the table, was that the HOA's financials were a mess. They were spending more than they collected. Their operating account was being supplemented by a line of credit that had been rolled over twice. Their insurance lapsed for 11 days in November and was quietly reinstated. And the company holding their debt, a mid-size private lender called Creston Capital, had been absorbed by a larger firm in a merger I'd read about the previous spring. I went home that night and pulled up the successor entity. What was in that filing should not have existed, at least not in the form I found it. But I closed the laptop. I made tea. I waited. Spring came. My raised garden beds went up 4 cedar frames, built exactly to regulation height per the HOA guidelines I had read in full the day I moved in. Linda sent a letter claiming the beds were aesthetically inconsistent with the neighborhood. There was no rule about aesthetics. I sent a single written response citing the relevant sections. One letter, certified, return receipt requested. The bed stayed. Linda stopped waving. In June, something shifted. Neighbors started avoiding eye contact. Patricia, my next-door neighbor, who had once lent me her extension cord, paused one afternoon like she wanted to say something, then drove away without a word. In July, I found out why. Linda had been circulating a story that I was running a business out of my house, that I planned to convert my property into a rental, that I had been rude to the landscaping crew. None of it was true. No one asked me. The petition came in August, 47 signatures, a formal request to review whether my presence aligned with community values. I read every name. Then I went inside, made coffee, and opened my laptop. The HOA had financed its improvements through a structured debt instrument. When the original lender was absorbed, the debt had been bundled and sold on the secondary market. And Birchwood's debt was in that package. It was discounted. Misfiled delinquencies. Clerical errors. To everyone else, it looked like risk. To me, it looked like leverage. I read everything. The clauses, the rights, the enforcement terms. Then I made a call. By the next week, I owned it. I didn't tell anyone. I attended the next HOA meeting, sat quietly, took notes. Afterward, I spoke to Diane, the treasurer. The reserve account discrepancy, I said quietly. Line 14, it's been there since April. She froze. I know, she said. She had seen it too. No one had listened. I asked her to document it. She hesitated. You're not just a homeowner, are you? She asked. I'm whatever the situation requires. In October, the HOA sent me a notice. Violations, fines, a threat to place a lien on my home. I read it once. Then I called my attorney. The clause was clear. If the HOA engaged in legally actionable conduct against a secured party, the debt holder could call the full balance due. I was the secured party. They had just given me the trigger. The letter went out that Thursday. $219,000, due in 60 days. They couldn't pay it. Linda came to my door. I think we've had a misunderstanding, she said. I looked at her. You organized 47 people to remove me from my own home. What part of that was unclear? She didn't answer. I made my terms clear. Remove the violations, retract the petition, restructure the board, full financial transparency. In return, I would renegotiate. You planned this, she said. I shook my head slightly. You underestimated what I was reading. 3 days later, they agreed. Linda resigned the following week. The retraction letter went out to every house. Patricia came back, apologized, I listened, took the casserole, said thank you, nothing more. In November, I hung the wind chimes again. They sounded exactly the same. Everything else was different. Think about how the people closest to you would describe who you are right now, your patience, your precision, what you notice, and what you choose not to say. Would their version match the person you actually are? Or have you let someone else's story about you become the one you're living? My mother used to say, people will always underestimate a quiet woman with a library card and a pencil. She was right. The quietest person in the room isn't always the weakest. Sometimes, they're the one who already won.